How does reverse repo affect Fed's ability to apply QT? It doesn't. I mean, all quantitative tightening is, I mean, you got two options there for quantitative tightening, reducing the balance sheet. You just don't roll over the debt. So let's think about this. If you've got let's say the Fed has one 10-year treasury and it's maturing tomorrow. Okay. It matures tomorrow. So what are their options? They get paid back from the government. So the government has to do what? The government has to most likely, the TGA could have some money in it, but then they're going to have to borrow more money to pay something else. So just assuming that they're kind of hand to mouth at the TGA, which is the Treasury General Account. If you're asking about reverse repo, I'm sure you know what the TGA is. And so the government, Janet Yellen, Treasury, would have to issue another Treasury to pay back the Fed because their Treasury matures tomorrow. So there's still, if the Fed allows that Treasury to roll over or does not allow the Treasury to roll over, they take payment, then what would happen is Janet Yellen issues the Treasury, then the private sector buys it, a bank or non-bank entity, then that Treasury goes onto their balance sheet. So the Treasury still exists. It just goes from the Fed's balance sheet to someone else's balance sheet, say at a different maturity or a different interest rate. And then that quote unquote money goes into the TGA, and then the Fed just deletes it. It's gone. So it could reduce the amount of money in reverse repo, amount of dollars in reverse repo, if the money market funds or their investors are taking that cash and buying treasuries with it. But it all depends on what they do. There's really not a direct link between QT and reverse repo. There's just maybe a direct link between QT and the balance sheets of potentially the commercial banking system and the non-banking entities. So Fed would have, after they allow that to roll off their balance sheet, they would have one less treasury, one less bank reserve, because the treasury would be the asset, bank reserve would be the liability of the commercial bank. If it was purchased by a commercial bank, they would do an asset swap, a new treasury for the bank reserves that the Fed had as a liability. Non-bank entity, then they would give the liability of a commercial bank, that would disappear. Then they would get the treasury. And then let's see, how would that work then that would also, let's see, if they get that, then that would go from the commercial bank down into the treasury, and the treasury would go ahead and pay the Fed with that. So that would decrease the bank reserves. Yeah. So this gets very complex. As you can see me go through it. But the bottom line here, I don't want to really go over this too extensively without the whiteboard. But the bottom line is it doesn't really affect it directly. It just could mean that the cash that's in reverse repo right now would prefer to not be in reverse repo and buy treasuries with it.